My name is Sarah, and I'm 28 years old. I never imagined I'd feel this kind of pain in my own home. I had a bad feeling about my own home, so I pretended to go on vacation. While I was watching from afar, an elderly neighbor took me by the hand and whispered, "At midnight, you will see what your family has been hiding." And when midnight came, I fainted from what I saw my own family doing behind my back. Before I continue, if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, hit like, subscribe, and comment below where you're watching from. I want to hear your story, because what I'm about to tell you will shake you to your core, just like it shattered everything I believed about the people I loved most. You know, growing up, I thought I had the perfect family. My parents, Mark and Linda, were married for 32 years. They were high school sweethearts who built a beautiful life together. My younger brother Jake was my best friend, my confidant, the person I could tell anything to. We lived in this gorgeous 2-story house on Maple Street, the kind of home you see in movies with the white picket fence and the rose garden my mother tended to every morning. I trusted these people with my life. I mean, these were the people who raised me, who taught me about love, loyalty, and family values. My dad would always say, "Family first, Sarah. No matter what happens in this world, we stick together." My mom would hug me every night before bed and tell me, "You're safe here, sweetheart. This is your sanctuary." And Jake. Jake was supposed to be my protector, my little brother who looked up to me. But something started changing about 6 months ago. It was subtle at first, like shadows moving just outside your peripheral vision, phone calls that would abruptly end when I walked into a room, hushed conversations that stopped the moment I appeared. My family would exchange these quick glances, these loaded looks that made my stomach turn with unease. I started noticing my dad would disappear for hours at a time, claiming he was running errands that should have taken 20 minutes. My mom became secretive about her phone, always keeping it face down, always stepping outside to take calls. And Jake? My sweet little brother started avoiding me entirely. He'd barely make eye contact during family dinners, and when I tried to talk to him, he'd mumble some excuse and disappear to his room. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago. I was doing laundry in the basement when I heard them talking upstairs. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was urgent, almost panicked. When I came back up, they were all sitting around the kitchen table with this thick, suffocating silence. The moment they saw me, they scattered like I was some kind of threat. That night, I lay in bed with this gnawing feeling in my chest, this voice in my head screaming that something was terribly wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling that my own family was hiding something massive from me, something that involved me directly. The paranoia was eating me alive, and I knew I had to do something drastic to uncover the truth. So I made a decision that would change everything. I decided to fake going on vacation. I spent days planning this elaborate deception. I told them I needed a break from work stress and that I was going to visit my college friend Emma in Portland for 2 weeks. I showed them the fake hotel reservations I'd made online, the rental car confirmation, even packed my suitcase in front of them. The whole time I was watching their faces, looking for any sign of relief or anticipation that I'd be gone. And there it was. The moment I announced my trip, I saw something flicker across my mother's face. Relief. My dad's shoulders visibly relaxed, and Jake actually smiled for the first time in weeks. That reaction confirmed every horrible suspicion I'd been harboring. They wanted me gone. They were planning something for when I wouldn't be there to witness it. The morning of my supposed departure, I put on this whole show. I loaded my car, hugged them goodbye, and drove off like I was heading to the airport. But instead of going to Portland, I drove to a motel about 20 miles away and checked in under a fake name. I bought a cheap pair of binoculars and some dark clothing. I was going to become a spy in my own life. For the first few days, I'd drive by the house at different times, parking down the street where I could observe without being seen. Everything seemed normal during the day. My parents went to work, Jake went to college classes, life continued as usual, but I had this sick feeling that whatever they were hiding would happen when they thought they were completely safe from my eyes. On the 4th night, something changed. I was parked across the street, watching through my binoculars, when I saw Mrs. Henderson from next door walking toward my car. Henderson was this 80-year-old woman who'd lived on our street for 40 years. She knew everything about everyone, and she had this way of seeing things that others missed. She tapped on my window, and when I rolled it down, she looked at me with these sad, knowing eyes. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered. "You found out, didn't you?" I didn't know what to say, so I just stared at her. She continued, "I've been watching your family for weeks, honey. I wanted to tell you so many times, but I didn't know how. At midnight tonight, you'll see what they've been hiding. But prepare yourself, dear. Some truths are too painful to bear." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "What are you talking about, Mrs. Henderson? What's happening at midnight?" She reached through the window and squeezed my hand with her frail fingers. "Just watch, sweetheart. Just watch, and you'll understand why they needed you gone." Then she shuffled back to her house, leaving me sitting there with this crushing weight of dread settling in my chest. The hours crawled by like torture. I sat in that car, checking my watch every few minutes, feeling my anxiety build with each passing moment. 11 o'clock came and went. 11:30 felt like an eternity. By 11:50, I was shaking uncontrollably, my palms sweating, my breath coming in short gasps. At exactly 11:58, I saw movement in my house. The living room lights came on, and I could see figures moving around inside. I raised my binoculars with trembling hands and focused on the windows. What I saw at midnight destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. Through the living room window, I watched my entire family gathered around our dining room table. But they weren't alone. There was another woman there, someone I'd never seen before. She was about my age, with long dark hair and a bright smile. She was sitting in my usual chair at the family dinner table. My mother was serving her my favorite meal, the special lasagna she only made for birthdays and holidays. My father was pouring wine and laughing at something this stranger had said. And Jake? My brother Jake was holding her hand. Not like a friend, like a boyfriend, like someone he was in love with. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was watching them all together, seeing how natural they looked, how happy they seemed. This wasn't some random dinner with a guest. This was my family having a celebration. This was my family hosting someone they clearly loved and had been secretly spending time with for God knows how long. I watched my father stand up and raise his wine glass, like he was making a toast. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the joy on his face, the pride in his eyes as he looked at this stranger sitting in my place. My mother was wiping away tears of happiness. Jake was beaming like I'd never seen him beam before. And then, the moment that made me understand the full scope of their betrayal. My father walked over to a cabinet and pulled out a small velvet box. Even from across the street, even through binoculars, I knew what it was. It was our grandmother's engagement ring, the family heirloom that was supposed to be passed down to me when I got married. The ring my mother had promised me since I was a little girl. I watched in absolute horror as my brother got down on one knee in front of this stranger and presented her with my ring, my inheritance, the symbol of our family legacy that belonged to me. She said yes. Of course she said yes. And my parents erupted in celebration, hugging her, welcoming her into our family like she belonged there, like she was their daughter instead of me. That's when everything went black. I don't know how long I was unconscious, but when I came to, I was slumped over my steering wheel, and my face was wet with tears I didn't remember crying. My entire body was shaking, and I felt like I was going to throw up. The physical pain of betrayal is real, and it was coursing through every nerve in my body like poison. I looked back at the house, and the celebration was still going on. They were all in the living room now, probably looking at photo albums, sharing stories, bonding over their shared secret. The secret that excluded me completely. Sitting there in that car, I felt like my entire identity had been ripped away from me. Who was I if not their daughter? Who was I if not Jake's sister? Everything I thought I knew about myself was built on the foundation of being part of this family, and now that foundation had crumbled beneath me. The rage came next, and it was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. How could they do this to me? How could they plan a secret engagement, use my inheritance, and celebrate it all while pretending I was on vacation? How could they lie to my face for months, maybe years? I thought about all the times Jake had asked me about my dating life, pretending to be the protective little brother when he was actually gathering information to make sure his own relationship stayed hidden. I thought about my parents asking me about my travel plans, pretending to care about my happiness when they were really just trying to figure out when they'd have the house to themselves. But the anger couldn't mask the deeper pain underneath. The devastating realization that my family had chosen someone else over me, that they were capable of having joy and celebration and love that didn't include me at all. That maybe they were actually happier when I wasn't around. I drove back to the motel that night in a complete daze. I couldn't process what I'd seen, couldn't make sense of how 3 people I'd trusted with my life could orchestrate such an elaborate betrayal. I sat on that scratchy motel bedspread and cried until I had no tears left, until my chest ached from sobbing, until my eyes were so swollen I could barely see. The next morning, I woke up hoping it had all been some horrible nightmare, but my phone had dozens of missed calls and text messages from my family. "Hope you're having fun in Portland. Miss you already. Can't wait to hear about your trip." Every single message felt like a knife twisting in an already gaping wound. I couldn't bring myself to go back and spy on them again. I couldn't bear to see more evidence of their secret happiness, their secret life that existed in the space where I used to be. Instead, I spent the next week in that motel room, ordering takeout and trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do with this information. Part of me wanted to march into that house and confront them, to throw their betrayal in their faces and watch them scramble to explain themselves. Part of me wanted to disappear forever, to give them exactly what they seemed to want, a life without me in it. But mostly, I just felt hollow, empty. Like someone had reached inside my chest and scooped out everything that made me feel alive. I kept thinking about all the signs I'd missed, all the moments that probably meant something different than I thought. Jake's sudden interest in helping with grocery shopping, probably so he could buy special food for his secret girlfriend. My parents' new habit of working late on certain nights, probably so they could have dinner with her. All those hushed conversations that stopped when I appeared, they were talking about her, planning around me, living a double life right under my nose. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. Not just angry at them, but angry at myself for being so naive, so trusting, so blind to what was happening in my own home. How could I have missed something this big? How could I have been so completely shut out of something so important to my own family? And then there was the question that haunted me the most. How long had this been going on? Was this a new relationship? Or had Jake been hiding this girlfriend from me for years? Had my parents been lying to me for years? Was I the only person in the family who didn't know about this huge part of my brother's life? If you've ever been betrayed by the people you love most, hit like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I need to know that I'm not alone in this kind of pain, that other people understand what it feels like when your entire world gets turned upside down by the people who were supposed to protect you. Because the worst part wasn't just that they lied to me. The worst part was realizing that they were better at lying than I ever imagined. These people who raised me to value honesty and trust were masters of deception. They could look me in the eye and ask about my day while planning secret celebrations behind my back. They could hug me goodnight while counting down the days until I'd be gone so they could live their real lives. I started questioning everything. Every family memory, every moment of supposed closeness, every time they told me they loved me. Was any of it real? Or was I just the outsider they tolerated because they had no choice? Was I the family burden they'd finally found a way to work around? The isolation was crushing. I was completely alone with this knowledge, sitting in a dingy motel room with nowhere to go and no one to talk to. I couldn't call friends because how do you explain that you're spying on your own family? I couldn't call other relatives because I didn't know how deep this conspiracy went. For all I knew, everyone in our extended family was in on this secret except me. I thought about calling Jake directly, confronting him about what I'd seen. But what would I say? "Hey, little brother, I know you're secretly engaged to someone you've been hiding from me for God knows how long, and you're using our grandmother's ring to do it?" The conversation played out in my head 100 different ways, and none of them ended well. The betrayal cut so deep because it wasn't just about a hidden relationship. It was about being systematically excluded from one of the most important moments in my brother's life. It was about watching my parents celebrate someone else's future while pretending to care about mine. It was about realizing that the family I'd built my entire identity around had built a secret version of itself that didn't include me. I spent hours staring at the ceiling of that motel room, trying to understand what I'd done wrong. Had I been a terrible sister? A terrible daughter? Was there something about me that made them want to keep this huge secret? Or was this just who they really were? People capable of elaborate deception and emotional manipulation. The pain was physical. I'm not exaggerating when I say that betrayal feels like someone is literally tearing your heart out of your chest. I couldn't eat without feeling nauseous. I couldn't sleep without having nightmares about that moment when I saw them all together, so happy without me. I couldn't even look at pictures on my phone without wondering which moments were real and which were performed for my benefit. By the end of that week, I was a completely different person than the one who had left for her fake vacation. The trusting, loving daughter and sister was gone, replaced by someone suspicious and guarded and deeply wounded. I realized that I could never go back to the way things were, could never look at my family the same way again. But I also realized something else. I was stronger than I thought I was. Strong enough to uncover the truth when something felt wrong. Strong enough to face the most painful revelation of my life without completely falling apart. Strong enough to survive the destruction of everything I thought I knew about my family. Still, the question remained. What was I supposed to do now? How do you move forward when the people you trusted most have proven themselves to be strangers? How do you rebuild your life when the foundation it was built on turns out to be quicksand? I still don't know what to do next, but one thing is certain. My life will never be the same. The family I thought I knew is gone, replaced by people I don't recognize, people capable of cruelty I never imagined possible. And I'm left here, picking up the pieces of a shattered identity, trying to figure out who I am when I'm not their daughter, not his sister, not part of their secret-keeping, celebration-having, ring-giving family. If you felt this story, please like, subscribe, and share your story in the comments. I want to hear from all of you watching around the world. Tell me about the moment your family broke your heart. Tell me about the betrayals that changed everything, because right now, I need to know that I'm not the only one sitting in the wreckage of a family that chose secrets over love, deception over trust, and someone else's happiness over my own.